just so that everyone can plan accordingly, unless we have objection, I would like to move item 12 on the action item to to right after reports, if that is okay. So that's what we will do, okay? Okay, let's, per board policy 2350, any person may address the board at this time, either on an agenda item or other matters of interest to the public that are within the subject matter jurisdiction of the board. A maximum of 5 minutes is allowed for each speaker, with a maximum of 15 minutes per item unless otherwise extended by the board. Do we have any public comments concerning items on the agenda? None. Public comments concerning items not on the agenda? Okay, none there as well. All right, we will move on to the report from Brissa.
Okay. So the first thing I have to report is that at the beginning of the semester, we had 2 vacant positions. The first one was finance, and the second one was commissioner of clubs. And 2 weeks ago, we held interviews, and we appointed 2 people to those positions. So we now have a full executive board for our student senate class. And also, we have a few events going on campus. The first one is Club Social, which will happen on the 20th. During this event, the commissioner of clubs will host an icebreaker. She will have all of it's going to be for the advisors and the officers. And she's going to have them exchange information, because our goal this semester is to have more interaction and collaboration between all of the clubs. Because last semester, our goal was to have more participation in the clubs, which is why we developed the ICC point system, which was a great success. So this semester, we're going to focus on having more interaction between the clubs. And our next event will be Club Brush on the 22nd. This is an opportunity for clubs to recruit new members for the new semester. And the theme for this Club Brush is going to be Blast from the Past. So each booth is going to choose an era as their theme for their booth. And this will be an opportunity for them to earn ICC points. And the way that the ICC points are going to be given out is the faculty will go around visiting each booth, and they will vote on who has the most enthusiastic booth, the best representation of each era, and the best teamwork. And so then the clubs, the points will be given out to the clubs. And then at the end of the semester, the clubs will, with the most points, gets $100 to their club fund and a trophy. And that's all I have to report.
Thank you.
Very good. Sounds like a busy time. Any questions? Okay, thank you, Brissa.
No problem.
Board meeting reports, starting at my far left. John? Earl? No. Earl? None? Okay, I would report COS Giants are 2-0. All right. Football. That's right. What other Giants are there? You got me there. All right, Tim, do you have a report for us today?
Yes, a brief. Good evening. I wanted to report that our employee giving campaign, our recruitment for employees to give to the Giant Success campaign is going on, and so far we've recruited 16 new commitments, which accounts for a 41% increase in donors. We have a total of 55, which is still a stretch from it's still short of our stretch goal of 90 to commemorate our COS 90th anniversary. But that's why we call it stretch goal, and we're going to be carrying out this recruitment through the end of the year and keep gaining new ones. We had like 3 this afternoon, so it's going really well. I wanted to share with you that the Visalia Community Rotary Foundation scholarship partnership that we just forged with the volunteers at the Visalia Rotary Community Foundation. It's the Robert Harrell Career and Technical Education Scholarship Program. They've been trying to seek scholarships. They want to award scholarships to our COS students and other career technical agencies within the Visalia area, and they've been frustrated with the lack of applicants. And they have they have a wonderful application. It's just, it's a PDF file that has to be printed and then handwritten onto and that type of thing. So we've been able to talk them into integrating their application with our application, our COS Foundation application process. And they wanted to get it going so fast that they wanted to commit $15,000 to applicants we already received the last cycle and have awarded to. So we're going through and giving them enough qualified applications to make a for this fall and next spring, and while still having resources to fund during the regular cycle timeframe. So we're really excited about them wanting to jump in and help out our students this quickly. We do have in determining where to channel our efforts over this coming year. If the trustees have any thoughts on the subject, please contact me, or our trustee representative, Ken Nunez, will be there, and so you can reach out to him. But if you have any thoughts of something that the foundation should be working on or anything like that, please let us know. We appreciate the input. And then we do have upcoming events. I failed to give you a little cheat sheet this time, but I'll follow that up with an email. We do have the Crush Party coming up on the 23rd, and we have 13 different vintners and 14 different food providers. There will be plenty of wine and plenty of food for that event. So on the 23rd from 6 to 9 at the Tulare College Center. We have the Hall of Fame event coming up on October 13th. The invitations just went out this morning. And the COS Harvest Fest is happening October 22nd at the Tulare Center from 10 to 4 p.m. And the Power of the Purse, November 17th from 11 a.m. to 1:30. And we're getting a ton of purses in the office right now. It's looking really good. That's it.
Okay, well, thank you, Tim. Any questions for Tim? All right, we'll move on to accreditation report. Dr. Lozano.
Good evening, everyone. If you can look in your packet, I think on your table, there is the accreditation report timeline. Is that where it is? It's with the, it's inside the strategic plan. Yeah. It's inside the annual report that you received, the annual report on the strategic plan. I think it's stuck in there. I'm not gonna go over the annual report with you. I'm just gonna refer to this timeline, the accreditation timeline. As you know, the accreditation work group has been meeting regularly and looking forward to what we'll be doing each semester as we approach accreditation. So we've put that forward here. So as you can see, in fall of 16, we will be looking at any gaps. So we have our subgroups looking at what areas have we addressed and what areas do we need to continue to address that may be areas we're not covered. So we've just today sent out emails to our different governance groups to help us address some of the areas that we need more information on. And through the rest of the semester, we'll be reviewing each of the standards as well as drafting our eligibility requirements. Starting in spring of 17, we will be looking at the last standard, Standard 4, finalizing our eligibility requirements, and then starting to look at the data that we are required to have from the accreditation. So we'll start looking at that data in the spring. We'll start writing drafts of the report in May and over the summer. And then in fall of 17, we will introduce the process at convocation and start talking about the data and problem-solving data. And then each month, we will address one of the standards with the entire campus community, putting it out on COSE News, providing evidence, and giving folks an opportunity for feedback. In spring of 18, we will have a completed draft to present at convocation, spring convocation, and then talk about the new requirement, which is a quality focus essay, which is an essay that is going to address any areas of weakness or areas that we want to work on for the upcoming years. And we'll talk about that with the group, with our group, our whole district, at our summit that we'll have on January 27th. We're hoping to then get some final edits going in February present the report in March and April of 2018 to the Academic Senate and District Governance Senate. We will plan to have it to the board in May of 2018 with the final edits, and then we will get it to graphics and printing and off by July 2018. So that is our rough, not rough, but that's our detailed, but more details to come outline, but at least we're able to break it down month by month and see what the different tasks we need to complete to have it on time for the submission in July of 18. And we did include it on here, but the visit will then be in October of 2018. Any questions? Dr. Trimble, did you want to add anything? Good.
Looks good.
All right, thank you very much.
We're not getting snuck up on this time.
Okay. Next is the superintendent's report.
Okay, I would like to take the time I have this evening to report to you and introduce our provost from the Hanford Center, Dr. Robinson, who will be sharing with you an introduction of our new director for the College of the Sequoias Police Academy.
My pleasure tonight to introduce Rick Haskell, who will be filling the shoes of Kevin Meisner, who has decided to go apply and go to the Chief of Police. And we thank you for everything that you've done and look forward to continuing working with you at the Hanford campus. Rick is a COS graduate. He left COS and went to University of Southern California, where he majored in mechanical engineering. And so then he did what all mechanical engineering majors do. He moved back to Visalia and decided to go become a police officer. So, close. Very interesting story. After a successful 28-year career, we are so thrilled to have him. He currently serves as captain at the Visalia Police Department, and we are so thrilled to have him after he has taught in the academy, served on the Law Enforcement Advisory Board, and certainly has all the skills and traits that we need in the Police Academy director position. So with that, I welcome Rick Haskell.
I just wanted to take a brief moment to express my thanks to COS, the president, for this opportunity. Like Dr. Robinson referenced, COS was a place that, and this won't surprise a lot of folks, I'm not really too sentimental, but it's where I met my wife Kathy at COS. Both of our children went to COS. My son played football here. My daughter went here for a year. So COS is a special place for us. And in this position, it's so exciting to be able to give back on, I mean, after 28 years of giving to the community the way that I've done, now I can invest it in the students and which I see as the future, obviously, the future of not only this community, but the community as a whole. So again, I really am looking forward to this opportunity. My last day at the police department is Friday, and I'll be starting here on Monday. So no less, be right at it. So again, board, thank you for this opportunity. I look forward to working with all of you and joining the team.
You're welcome. Thank you. Okay, I guess we're not going to ask any questions. He's left the podium. Thanks for that. Thank you. Okay, under reports, I see that we have Dr. Trimble with us today, so I suspect we're going to have a report.
Good evening. The Academic Senate will be having its second meeting this week, and we'll be finalizing our evaluation from last year, as well as our initiatives. And so at the next board meeting, I will be bringing the evaluation and the initiatives forward, so you know where we'll be heading. This year, we are going to, one of the initiatives we do know we have is we're going to be trying to increase the number of faculty that are attending the state plenary sessions. So we were able to carry forward some funds from last year, and we're going to try and spread it around so the Senate will pay for the registration, and then the faculty can use their faculty travel funds to pay for the hotel rooms. So we're hoping in that way to make it more affordable for more people to go and to get the training and hopefully get them more interested in becoming more involved.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice to have you back.
Thank you.
Okay, next is Mr. Tidwell with a CASA report.
Good afternoon. Hi. Quickly, we're hopefully concluding some business today, and I hate to say that it never stops, I'm going to bring up some new business with you. Just received a letter today from the Community College Association reminding me to get my faculty organized around Proposition 55, which is the extension of a tax on wealthy taxpayers that's provided funding for the K-12 system and the community colleges. And they reminded me in a letter I received from Sacramento today that this is very, very important for our community college. In the last year, our district has received in excess of $8.2 million as a result of the Prop 55 funds. Well, I'll be working with the faculty on campus to be sure that we are all in support of Prop 55. The Community College Association is asking as well that I ask you folks, with your colleagues around the state, to please consider passing a resolution in support of Prop 55, which will continue to fund our campus into the future. So I would ask for your consideration and ask that you maybe take that up as a future business item. Secondly, and I don't mean to get the cart in front of the horse, but I want to cede some time, I understand, to Mr. Nunes, who had some things to say. But without getting the cart in front of the horse, by way of minor thanks, and I'm sorry that these aren't COS calendars, but CTA likes to send me packages in the mail, and by way of thanks for your involvement in the negotiations process, I want to bring you a bunch of CTA pocket calendars, which I've got. I'm not going to last for several years, but I'll at least pass those around in case you can use them, and certainly folks in the office may be able to make use of them if you can. But that's the end of my report today, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Tidwell. Nice to have you back as well. Okay, now I would like to, as we previously announced, I would like to take up item 12 under the action items, and I see Mr. Branch already walking to the podium to report on that.
I want to make sure I get one of those handy pocket calendars, so be sure to save me one. I think it's hard to believe that our master agreement with Costa expired in June of 2010. We're talking over 6 years. Although we've been operating under that contract, it's finally nice to be able to get a current master agreement between the district and Costa, and I couldn't be happier. These last round of negotiations went very well. It's hard to believe that there were differences over the years because everything just went swimmingly. But with that, we do have in front of you tonight the tentative agreement that was reached between the district and Costa on July 19th. It has been ratified already by the faculty members, and tonight it's up for ratification by the Board of Trustees. It's a 45-page document. I'm not going to go over all the items. I am, however, going to hit several of the highlights that I think are worth mentioning in this tentative agreement. First of all, with a master agreement that is several years old, there was a lot of outdated language that we wanted to delete from the 2007-2010 master agreement. Both sides went through it and were able to take out the expired or outdated language to make it more current. Throughout a number of articles, we had references such as during the fall 2010 semester or effective in 2008. We took out all that old outdated language to make it more current. Although we haven't been negotiating with tentative agreements over the past couple of years, we have had a number of opportunities to revise and clarify language that stems from our master agreement. And unfortunately, that was through grievances. Whenever a grievance was filed, both sides would have an opportunity to try and settle those grievances before going to arbitration. And I believe we reached a number of positive agreements through the grievance process in which we were able to come up with good language that would be inputted into our master agreement. We didn't actually put these grievance resolutions in the physical 2007-2010 master agreement. We put them aside, kept a separate record of them, but there were contract language. With this last round of negotiations, both sides agreed to put those grievance resolutions language inside of the actual contract. So it'll be nice to have just one document with all of the contract provisions between the district and Costa, rather than having to go to the master agreement and the multiple grievance resolution settlement agreements. So that was a positive with this round of negotiations. Back in 2007, 2008, the district and Costa negotiated the scheduling process. And although it was written very nicely at the time, we've noticed that over the years that we wanted to take a look at the scheduling process with a fresh set of eyes. And during this last round of negotiations, we actually reviewed all the steps involved in scheduling and cleaned it up to reflect current practice. And that really did a good job. We did a good job of streamlining the scheduling process for instructional faculty when it comes to scheduling classes. Another big item that we accomplished through this last round of negotiations was that we beefed up the provision on non-instructional faculty. In the 2007-2010 master agreement, we had maybe 2 paragraphs that were applicable to non-instructional faculty. And when I say non-instructional faculty, I mean counselors, librarians, our health coordinator. We just didn't have the language within our master agreement that adequately reflected the duties and responsibilities of this non-instructional faculty. So with this round of negotiations, we were able to separate into Article 8 several pages that revolve around the duties and responsibilities of non-instructional faculty. Now into the more important item, which is Article 9, salary. We were able to agree upon a 6% salary increase in the academic salary schedule as well as the overload salary schedule. That will be retroactive to the beginning of the school year, which is in August. Another item we agreed upon was a one-time 1% stipend, which will go to faculty, and that is based on a faculty member's 2015-2016 base salary. Again, that's a one-time stipend, and both of those items will take effect with the September paycheck. Also in Article 9, we increased the academic Senate reassigned time from 1.1 FTES to 1.5 FTES. And that is in line now with what the Costa executive team receives. Moving on to Article 12, we were able to negotiate that the monthly accrual of sick leave would go from 1.4 days per month down to 1.0 days per month. And just to refresh your memory a little bit, back in 2009 or so, when we were going through a pretty significant budget cuts, there wasn't a whole lot of money to provide to the various bargaining units. So one of the things that we could do is increase the amount of sick leave that a faculty member was able to accrue per month. Unfortunately, at that time, we did not put a sunset on that provision. And with this round of negotiations, what we did do is we did put an end to the accrual of 1.4 sick days per month down to 1.0 sick days per month, which is in line with what the education code provides. As you know, at the last board meeting, I came up here and announced that Costa had agreed to move over to CISC as our new health care provider. And I just want to reemphasize that effective October 1st, it now makes all of the employee groups here on campus that are effectively going to CISC. The medical cap for faculty members remains the same at $15,738 per year. We are, however, we did agree upon that effective next October, October 17th, any increase in premiums that our healthcare provider is going to charge the employee, the district will pick up half of that increase in premium costs. So we did agree to that for the 2017-2018 year already, and that is reflected within the tentative agreement. As far as dental and vision goes, we increased the cap slightly by $50 from $1,791 per year to $1,845 per year. In line with that, faculty members will be seeing an increase in the amount of allowable coverages for vision. One of the key components of our accreditation is that faculty members utilize student learning outcomes within their everyday teaching. Back in 2013, consistent with this accreditation standard, the district and COSTA agreed to a pilot program in which, in the evaluation phase of a faculty member's evaluation, they will mark a checkbox indicating that he or she does comply with the accreditation standard of participating in student learning outcomes. As I mentioned, that was a pilot project. What we did with this round of negotiations is that we actually put it in Article 18 that faculty members will participate in student learning outcomes as part of the evaluation. Finally, down to Article 17. We did some language cleanup within the grievance article. Most notably is we specified in what instances a grievance may occur. That would be had to be a specific contract violation, a violation of a board policy or administrative procedure, or any other matters that are within the jurisdiction of the Public Employees Relation Board. So we had a very broad definition of what a grievance was before this round of negotiations, and we narrowed it down to those 3 items. Finally, this is a 3-year contract. We will have reopeners in the upcoming years. Both sides have the ability to open up salary and up to 2 articles during the reopener years. This contract will expire on June 30th, 2019. And with that, I will ask for any questions. If there's no questions, I would ask that this tentative agreement be ratified.
Thank you for that summary, Mr. Bratch. Do we have any questions at this time? Okay. All right, so we have a motion. Second. We have a motion and a second to approve the tentative agreement between the district and College of the Sequoias Teacher Association. Any additional questions? Not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much, Mr. Bratch. And it's good to have that agreement behind us. Thank you. First time I had applause, I think.
Well, and as a token, Paul, we want to give you one of these.
Okay, Mr. Lamar from CSEA gets to follow this now.
I would just like to congratulate our fellow union and the district on coming to this contract. It's a great thing to see. And the only other thing was, for those that didn't see the email from Debbie, one of our longtime COS employees and one of our greatest boosters, Lillian Pack, just passed away at 100 years old today. She worked here for many, 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 many years and was a huge supporter of everything COS, but she was always at our musicals. I love the lady, and I was sad to see that email this morning. That's my report.
Thank you, Mr. Lamar. Okay, I don't see Mr. Nickel here, so
But we have their.
we have a representative from
Representative.
COSAFA, and are we going to have a report?
Nothing to report.
Okay,
report.
thank you very much. All right, that'll move us to information items. Item 1, Mr. Carrizosa.
Okay, if I could draw your attention to the item on your board agenda, number 1, which is our annual college report on the master plan and the state accountability initiatives. Just to give you a quick little update on process, there are a number of accountability measures that we need to make sure we make the board aware of on an annual basis. In the years past, we've tried to bring them to you one at a time as they come before us in accordance with their state timelines. This year, we varied that presentation a little bit and instead have tried to combine in kind of a summary fashion all of the requirements we have to make you aware of the progress on the different state accountability initiatives by doing it in conjunction with our annual college report on the master plan. So we've got a little bit of a combination of a presentation for you this evening. And in addition to the PowerPoint that you're going to see, let me reference a couple of these documents for you. First of all, specific to our district strategic plan and our objectives, this represents the official annual report on the strategic plan, 2016. We do this version because it is the technical data table, quantitative version that is derived. The format for this derived directly from our integrated planning manual. So this is the technical report with an opportunity for you to see each of the assessments as we defined them for our 8 district objectives and how those actual results for those assessments were completed this year. Secondly, we have a more kind of reader-friendly version. We took a little bit of poetic license to put together a public annual report. And in this document, it's more a magazine format. And the intent of this document is to respond to each of those strategic plan objectives by highlighting individual stories and experiences of our College of the Sequoias students and faculty. So by way of, for example, by way of talking about the physical therapy assistant program, the cohort this year, the success rate for their completion of the cohort, for their pass rate on the state board exam, and for their placement into employment, we told their story as an example of our response to those objectives that we have in our district master plan for completing certificates and degrees, but also the requirement we have for those completions in the student success scorecard for both academic and career technical education degree and certificate completion. So a couple different ways to see the information. One, the technical report derived directly from our integrated planning manual. Secondly, a little more reader-friendly, community-friendly version in the form of our annual report magazine. Now, the third format will be this PowerPoint that we're going to walk you through, and you have a copy of this in your board packet. But you might remember, if you had the chance to visit with us during convocation, we put up this slide as a way of trying to share with the district constituents the kind of interrelationship between the larger statewide initiatives that are in progress right now. Starting upper center, student success scorecard was the primary accountability measure that came out of the 2012 Success Act from the Chancellor's Office. You will recall that this student success cohort was developed by the Chancellor's Office. The metrics that they use are those 5 success indicators that we've shared with you in the format of the student success scorecard in the past. And remember, they also track cohorts over a 6-year period. So if we're looking at the 2015 results, that's based on the group of students who entered our system in 2009. And so a lot of what we see currently in the success scorecard is still a reflection of programs and processes we had in place for those groups when they were starting 6 years prior. The second one here, the Success for All, is a reminder that we have the Student Equity Plan in place now. That was another offshoot of the Success Act. And the Student Equity Plan redefined equity, and it required us to identify disproportionately impacted groups of students in our district population and help close the achievement gap for any of those subgroups of students who were performing below the average on those scorecard measures within our district. And so as these two initiatives were underway, there was an expectation from the legislature that the chancellor's office have some sort of a support system in place to help colleges develop these equity plans and implement these improvement strategies for the purpose of achieving these scorecard success indicators. This is called the Institutional Effectiveness Partnership Initiative. College of the Canyons is the representative college in our system who supervises and runs the funding for this project. And this too now has a series of institutional effectiveness indicators that it requires us to keep track of. So what the effectiveness initiative did is it set up its own little kind of check system of success indicators within colleges that they could ask colleges to report on annually, so that theoretically the chancellor's office would have some warning, some little bit of former knowledge by looking at these annual success indicators as to whether or not a college or a district was in some sort of trouble or difficulty, and hopefully be able to intervene prior to the time that they might roll up on an accreditation report or something that might lead to a greater sanction. And then finally, the newest spin-off of this is the workforce, the Strong Workforce Program, and it's an emphasis on the career technical education portion of these IEPI goals, equity goals, and student success scorecard success indicators. So on the success scorecard, where we have to show a progressive increase in the completion of career technical education certificates and degrees, this Strong Workforce Program funding is really intended now to provide us the resources we need to try to do that. So what we keep reminding everybody to try and make some sense of this is that the way that we keep all of these woven together is through our interim strategic plans that are happening in 3-year cycles now within our 10-year master plan. So when we share with you tonight these slides that are going to follow, we're going to focus specifically on our strategic plan objectives and very simple before and after numbers that show you where we are in responding to each of those objectives. Because through these objectives, we're working toward and aligned with the success indicators we're required to report on in those other accountability measures. So District Objective 1.1, these are right out of our technical report. Increase our overall enrollment, you'll remember, by 1.75% annually. And so we want to review and compare unduplicated head count. Full-time equivalent students didn't change from 13-14 to 14-15. The FTES stayed roughly the same, and if you think about that, 2 years back we were still leveled off and coming out of the recession, so that makes sense to us. The unduplicated student head count, however, increased from 13-14 to 14-15, 14,062 to 14,291. So we're always going to be back at least a full academic year in arrears. And so the information that we're looking at here for 2015 is what's reported, and I think it reflects pretty accurately what we were going through at that time. District objective number 2, increase the number of students who are transfer prepared annually. And so what we've tried to do here is set up an assessment that would review and compare the following to the most current prior year data. So this starts to give us a little bit of some annual data to look at, but we're looking at the number of students transferring to the UC system, CSU, in-state, private, out-of-state, 4-year institutions, and then the number of students who have achieved transfer prepared status, and you can see we've put in parentheses there, they've completed the transfer level math and English and have the 60 units for CSU transfer. And then we have something we track called the transfer rate, which is the cohort velocity. we'd have to give you a unit of instructional credit from Dr. Ozturk's presentation to explain that, so we're not gonna do that tonight. But if you look in blue, the number of students transferring in these categories didn't change from 13-14 to 14-15. Roughly, you can see they were the same. Number of students who became transfer ready has increased from 1,206 to 1,273. And then the transfer rate for the 6-year cohort has increased in numbers from 07-08, which would be 6 years back last year, to 08-09, which is 6 years back this year. So if it feels a little awkward to follow these, it is, but this is the cleanest, simplest way we can bring them to you so that you can start to keep track of the objectives as we toggle back and forth between a year-to-year comparison and going back to the 6-year cohort. District Objective 2.2, increase the number of students who earn an associate degree or certificate annually. This one's pretty straightforward. Number of students increased from 917 to 945 between 14-15. Number of students earning certificates decreased from 487 to 446. There are a number of reasons why these ebb and flow just a little bit, especially the certificates. One of them is, and we've been working on this, is refining and standardizing internally the way that we report these results. So what we've learned by trying to feed our information systems into a state database is that that state database is only going to be as accurate, of course, as the information we feed into it. And what we had learned is that depending on which corner of our district office was reporting the information, we might not be reporting the same information no, in the same year, but through different channels. So we even found some conflicting information for the same data within a single year because we were reporting it 2 different ways from 2 different offices. So we're just getting better at all of that, and this is some of the initial data that's gonna help us track that and not only improve the actual productivity, but our systems for reporting as well.
Stan, so does that mean under that particular objective 2.2 that we are not, we have some improvement to do in that area, or how would you say that?
Yes, any time that we're not making the progress that we intend to make, we need improvement in that area. The reason I brought forward the idea that some of it, especially in how we report CTE certificates, some of it is in the accuracy of our reporting, that getting the reporting corrected is an important achievement for us in this goal. So I'm not certain, now that we've got the reporting corrected and we get another year's worth of numbers, I think we're gonna have a better idea of what then specific work needs to be done to improve and increase the completion of the certificates, now that we know we're actually getting the information reported correctly. So I think we have work to do, yes, but I think getting the information reported correctly is the first thing, so that we can then be looking at some reliable data to make decisions about how to improve the completion rates. Increase course success and completion rates in pre-transfer English and math. The idea here, English, math, and ESL, in those pre-transfer classes, if we can increase those completion rates, we're gonna have more students moving from those prerequisite course levels, from those remedial levels, into their college level curriculum and their college level content in those areas. So success rates for the specified courses have increased from 51% in the fall of 14 to 54% in the fall of 15. The overall course completion or the retention rate has increased from 85% in 14 to 87% in 15. And we're actually pleased to see these small incremental increases, because what we've learned is in every category where we actually get the reporting data correct, and we know that we're tracking accurate data, reliable data, when we see small incremental increases, they have the greatest reliability of anything that we've come across. If we see a big spike in a particular year, typically that represents something that's not been reported correctly. So we like the fact that we're making small incremental gains. We think they're sustainable. 2.4, increase career technical education course success rates. And you can see here what the assessment was going to be to review and compare the following to the most current prior year data. Number of students earning a CTE degree, earning a CTE certificate, and success rates in CTE courses, which is measured as having earned a C or above. So we got number of students in career tech ed courses increasing slightly from 302 to 309, so that was a small increase. But again, we're getting the reporting of the data nailed down and accurate. The number of students earning a CTE certificate actually declined from 14 to 15. And then the CTE course success rates increased from 67% to 70% in the fall. So this is all information that we're looking at now, and we can start to build a series of questions around them as to why and make the adjustments based on these outcomes so that as we move into the next year, we make the necessary adjustments to have an impact on these outcomes and improve them. Reduce the achievement gap of the disproportionately impacted students. Review and compare the most current year data, progress on the metrics. This one's a little bit more complicated because what we did here is we have a district objectives that's gonna measure the success of our students based on how they do on a series of objectives that are in the student equity plan. So in this first year, it was just really getting a handle on everything that we're trying to measure in the equity plan and having it be clear and tracked in quantifiable measurements. So we were comparing the data from the 14 equity plan. Performance within the equity metrics didn't change. So you can see the student populations there. There were 17 occurrences in which the populations moved down within one of those metrics, and 10 occurrences in which the student populations moved up. So where we've got these disproportionate students trying to close the achievement gap, we're seeing some fluctuation. But again, we're in the very first year, really last year was the very first year of implementing those strategies. The 2005 equity plan does have a really rigorous evaluation. Now that they've reviewed that whole equity plan, Dolly's told me the number before, but there's like 15 goal evaluations and 27 activity assessments that are gonna be measured for all of the energy and resources that we have put into that student equity plan. I don't know, Brent or Dolly, do you guys wanna comment any more on either of those, or do you have questions? Because I know this is a lot of talk to, Lori will get me in the parking lot and go, so you really didn't say anything there, did you? And I'll say,
A lot of big words, a lot of numbers.
I'll say no, Lori, right now, we're really trying to develop, out of that student equity plan, we're trying to develop those things that we can compare from one year to the next and do it accurately over those subgroups of students. That's where the 15 goal evaluations and 27 activity assessments are gonna come in.
Because our student equity data is based on scorecard data from 6 years ago. So we put it in place 1 year, and then the next year we use the same scorecard data, but we're still measuring people from 6 years ago. So until we actually do our evaluations of year-to-year equity plan metrics, it doesn't tell us.
It's kind of outdated.
We told the state that, I think everybody's told the state that, but it's kind of the one consistent data source across the system that they use.
Yeah, I think the most interesting data for us to look at, assuming some of us will be here, and whether or not we're together, will be in about 2021. Because then 6 years prior to that would have been students coming in 2015, when we have everything in place that we have in place now.
No.
Okay, increase the training for academic and student services staff and faculty to respond to the unique needs of our student population. And again, this was really just tracking the numbers of training opportunities and work sessions. So I think here we did make significant progress. We felt better about these kinds of activities because we could identify them, count them, and track them. So you can see that training sessions were held on a variety of topics, areas that were focused in our service area outcomes like customer service, data collection, appropriate management of personnel, software programs. We had over 100 employees complete at least one of the 100 online training courses. 32 employees completing training specifically on the customer service, which was an area of emphasis, 104 employees participating in customer service training provided by alternative means, which are academic services, student services, and administrative services, meetings and workshops. So we did concentrate a lot of energy, and we're able to quantify that in the area of training. Improving the operational systems upon data-driven decision-making. You'll remember back when we put the COS 2.0 processes together, we have that little data in the middle of our decision-making model and our integrated planning. So we just did kind of a scan of how our system operated with the COS 2.0 procedures, and are we really using data in order to make some of those major decisions across the district. And we found that key decisions employed and performed appropriate analytical assessment and methods. Many of the key decisions drew appropriate conclusions and results that were based on an accurate analysis. And we had, of the cross-section that we looked at, 6 out of 7 of those key decisions all used appropriate data and evidence. So it wasn't really a matter of looking at the decision itself, but whether or not those decisions, when they came through our process, were based on data and information. And that was relevant when you looked at the meeting minutes, the discussions, the documents that were put forth, the proposals and the rationales for decisions that were made in our system. This is giving us a strong sense of confidence now that we're becoming more data-driven, and we base major key decisions across the district on data, and that data is archived in the artifacts now, ready to be reviewed by anybody who wanted to look at that. District Objective 4.2, improve the efficiency, effectiveness, and communication of human, physical, technological, financial resources. Again, this is measuring process. Again, we looked at our service area outcomes from the key administrative departments. Service area outcomes were all well-written. They had measurable components to them. They had a time frame for which something was either to be completed or reported upon, and then in an assessment of those, they were all achievable, they were all relevant. So we didn't list every one of them for you in here, because it might be something as simple as an internal office operation that's trying to be improved to increase the effectiveness of that office. So what we did do here was make sure you knew that if we put together a service area outcome like that, and we're monitoring it, to make sure that one of those areas up there, human, physical, technological resources, is going to improve, that it's done in an appropriate way, that that service area outcome is well written, it has a measurable objective to it. We can determine when it's either going to be done or continued, and to make sure that it's relevant to the objectives that we're trying to. So it's a way for you as a board to know that our processes are really good in terms of trying to improve in those operational service areas. So that's the simple kind of one-line version report for each of the district objectives. Again, in the technical report that's derived directly from the Integrated Planning Manual, there's a data box with additional narrative and text. There's answers to some questions. There's some summary conclusions that the research office have provided for us. So there's additional information in the technical report for you to review. This is just a quick recap of the student success scorecard. And remember those metrics we talked about that are on that scorecard, they're all right there. Completion, persistence, the 30-unit mark, the remedial, and the career technical education. And you can see right from the scorecard as it's currently posted on the Chancellor's website. Again, this is going back now. These are those 6-year cohort model tracks. So these are looking at from 2008-9 to 9-10, that cohort and their completion rates. Remember, prepared students are those that come to us testing at or above college level in English and math, and unprepared students are those that come to us If they're underprepared, they're testing below college level in English or math.
Why do you think the 30-unit achievement decreased?
If you go back to that period in time, I think we were starting to cut classes by attrition, and I think fewer courses were available, and students were more impacted. And I think we had longer lines then, John, and they just weren't able to get, and even though it's not a significant decrease, I don't think they were able to get classes.
Yeah.
That's when we were starting to close the doors.
Got it.
So you can see there, prepared students generally fare better, of course, although not in all cases. Remediation, remember, is not how well they complete the remedial class, but if they test into a remedial class, it's the rate at which they complete the course that's above it. So they've got to get through their remedial, enroll in the college level course, and complete that. So that's a tough one, especially for our ESL students, and you can see that's the population who has the toughest time. Even though they increased, it's still only 12%, and that's not a number that's strong enough for us. And then the career technical education percentage of students completing their degrees or certificates decreased a little bit. You know, any of those little 1 or 2% increases one way or another aren't as alarming to us. We'd like to see the 1 or 2% increases. We think those are sustainable. And percentage of students completing a career development and college preparation degree certificate, which is the conversion from non-credit to credit, increased. So generally speaking, a general statement is we're hitting, the cohorts as they're moving up are hitting many of these success indicators, with the exception of those that I think are going to be affected by the recession, and the recession's impact was mostly students not being able to get into classes and classes being closed by attrition. And then lastly, this is that institutional effectiveness and partnership initiative. This is the Chancellor's Office, a set of indicators. There is an additional, I think, paper document in your backup this evening, and it's the one that starts with ca.gov at the top, and it says institutional effectiveness. When you go through this type of a report, it's an online report that we're required to fill in the fields, and so it's you input it digitally, and it looks a little bit like doing your income tax form online. There's some active fields that you have to type into, and if you look at it, you will understand what the Chancellor's Office was trying to do when they were asked to put some success indicators in place that would help the Chancellor's Office know if a district is struggling. Because there's things here like, what's your fund balance? They're gonna check your fiscal integrity. What percentage of your budget is spent on salary and benefits? What are your annual operating expenses and your cash balance? So they wanna get a litmus test as to whether or not your budget is sound. Then they go through and they want a series of findings from your auditors, and what might your external audit show, and what are you doing to respond to that? Then they start to focus a little bit on some college student performance outcomes, and they start to mirror the success scorecard with things like completion rate, remedial rate, career technical education, etc. So you can see that we've responded to all of those with the same information, only in a different format. And that's the reason we didn't pull out and do another series of slides just on this, because there are 22 different indicators here, and each year we're responsible. The first year we had to respond to 4, the second year we had to respond to 14 more. So we're slowly getting our responses in to all of these, but the data is derived from the same data that we use to complete the other assessments. So what I have for you here is completion rate for underprepared was 33%. And our goal was if we're going to be trying to sustain a pass rate or a completion rate for underprepared students to not fall below 33%. So we met that. And the success rate for fall 2015 was 71%. That's an increase over the fall of 14, which was 68. And we set our goal, kind of our success indicator, at 68. And those were all based on multi-year trends that we had done to try to establish just a success indicator there that we knew we could try to work toward and not fall below.
I think we did that at one of the retreats, didn't we? About
Mhm.
some of the information that Dr. Oster brought to us.
Yes. And so you see the last table is the actual scorecard for the underprepared completion rate and the fall success rates. And I think there's one more slide here which points you to the full documentation for all of these. If you go to our Office of Research and Planning and Institutional Effectiveness, that link that's at the bottom there will open you up to the catalog of reports that we have. And so you can see the official report on the master plan, which is that strategic plan assessments. You can see our actual student success scorecard as it's presented by the Chancellor's Office, which has the same data on it that we showed you here this evening. You can see the Institutional Effectiveness Partnership Initiative report that we're responsible to submit. And then the last one that we don't want to forget, but it is more a function of just accreditation, is the institution set standards. That was the ACCJC's way of jumping into the game a few years ago when we were experiencing some accreditation crises across the state, a movement by the Chancellor's Office to start the IEPI, the legislature taking action to pass things like the Success Act and the Strong Workforce Program. The commission decided, hey, you know what, we should probably make sure we ask each college as a function of accreditation to establish some institution set standards. We went through a similar process back then, you'll remember, of looking at 5-year trend data. And actually we worked through Academic Senate and District Governance Senate, and we decided that those would be minimum standards for our institution, because you had to not only demonstrate that you had reviewed some trend data to make a decision, but you also had to set your standards so that in the future, all of your statistically significant subgroups could achieve those. And so we took a look at what were some of our lowest performing subgroups and made sure that we established institution set standards that weren't going to set themselves outside the pace of our lower performing subgroups to be able to achieve. Not that we didn't want our lower performing subgroups to grow and grow quickly, but we were a little nervous if we set our institution set minimum standards at the average and our subgroups were way below that, and then they got the really cool idea next year to tie your funding to it, that we would have locked ourselves out of some resources. So for our purposes right now, I really try hard to make sure that our institution stays focused on our district objectives. I feel like if we can work hard toward those objectives, we've worked really hard to make sure that they align with and weave into each of these other accountability measures. It's the only way in my mind that I keep from going crazy over it, because otherwise you're constantly tracking 4 or 5 assessments that look similar but are slightly different. And for a person who pays attention to detail, that will drive you nuts. So this is our way of sharing with you tonight the technical plan, the magazine, the coffee shop version.
The easy version.
Yeah, and then your PowerPoint, which has the summary data on it, and that slide right there will take you to every one of those reports in their entirety. And if you wanted a personalized tutorial session with Dr. Oster, nothing would make him happier. I have to say,
We'll call you.
I have to say, before you open it up for any questions, Mr. President, I joke, but I do want to compliment Dr. Ozturk and our research department, all of his staff. They work really hard, and I know, at least in the 4 years that I've been here, the evolution of our research office and what the research office does to help us quantify this and put it together in a sophisticated fashion is really, really good. And I get the opportunity to hear a lot about how other colleges are doing the same work. And when I get the opportunity to share how we're doing it, and normally the circle of people we're talking to gets really quiet because people want to hear how we've put it together. And so I know that Dolly has extended himself to share some of these ideas with neighboring community colleges and helped at more than just COS.
Good, thank you. Okay, questions from anyone?
Just a comment that, as an amateur, this data-driven review of where you are makes it possible for me to understand a few things. Without it, I couldn't. Appreciate your hard work.
You talked about funding being tied, Stan, and, as things change and it seems that, or what I hear is more money's gonna be put towards career technical ed, we have the skills gap, well, everything you talked about, a conversation. Do you foresee this data being used to be tied to some sort of funding, if it comes to CTE, or, do you think the state will use some of these mechanisms to tie it directly to funding, or no?
I think that's a possibility. It doesn't seem that likely in the near future. Here's what's happened most recently, Lori. The budget that you're gonna see a little bit here in a minute will show you what we're anticipating getting this year from the Strong Workforce Program, which is a specific stream of restricted funding coming for career technical education. And they've got a template in place of how they're gonna want us to report back on the expenditure of that funding, which has to be tied to either making the career technical education programs you have in your district better, or expanding them or increasing them in scope or number so that you have more of those CTE opportunities. It's a pretty good chunk of change. It's coming to the regions. We'll get a little part of the pot will be in a regional pot with our Central Valley community colleges, and we'll work together to dole that out. But then it's also coming directly to colleges on a formula that the Chancellor's Office developed, which has to do with not only your FTES, enrollment's part of it, but they weave in demographics like unemployment, poverty indexes in the area, and so on. So we're gonna pick up probably about $1 million just for career technical education. But what we're gonna have to do now, we're in the process of starting to prioritize that and take it out to our participatory system. We're gonna have to make sure that we invest it in ways that when we report at the end of the year what we've done with it, that it not only complies with what the intent is, but shows the results. And the results are gonna be harder to track now because they've tied us to the Workforce Innovation Act metrics. And that means you have to not only have a student come through a CTE program and complete the certificate, but you have to show that you placed them in a job, and you have to track them in that job. So now we're having to go to a federally supported software system that tracks, it's through the Internal Revenue Service that tracks them by social security number. Yeah. Tracks them by social security number.
That's all they're tracking.
For us to know, did we graduate our student from that welding academy or that welding program, and are they employed there now?
Taxes?
Are they employed there now? So I think it's a ways off before they actually start saying, unless you produce, you're not gonna get the money, but it's not that far off. I think for us, what they showed us is, we've got like 3 years to put all of these tracking systems in place for the CTE funding, and then each year after that you're not able to show that you were getting results, you run the risk of losing 1/6 of your allocation. So what it does over the life of a cohort, 6 years, is you run the possibility of losing all of your funding, 1/6 at a time, if you can't get it allocated in a way that you can measure its results.
Okay, very good. I would like to also echo Stan's comments. These are very well-done documents, and this one especially, I think we have to make sure that these get out to the various community groups, whoever they might be. I don't know what to be, but
I noticed that our student trustee liked page 2.
Yeah, we had to come up with a backdrop for our successes. We couldn't think of a better portrait than one of our student board reps.
I asked her if she'd copyrighted it. She said, no, you made a mistake.
Right.
Okay, very good.
Thank
Let's
you.
move on to item 2, low enrolled class justification report for the fall.
You have in front of you the low enrolled report and the council class section that we're required to submit at the beginning of each semester. And you can see it's 3 pages. It's about, I would say, very similar to what we had the last couple of semesters. Few low enrolled classes that are single sections of a course in a program in agriculture, a few in business, paralegal. The ones that have an X next to them were canceled, and the other ones we've kept open. And then you can see a few that are the only offering of the course in Hanford or Tulare, as well as some fine arts courses that are combined. And when you look at the fine arts, there's a total at the bottom, so you can see the first 4 actually add up to 14. And so it's not a section of 1, those are all combined. The second 2 add up to 14. On the second page, there's some that we canceled, some in theater, and then a couple of our bands that we're trying to, one of them's not finished enrolling yet, the other one we're trying to get the pep band up and going again. A few classes in industry and technology, a few in language arts, and on the back page we have an engineering, a couple in physical education science and social science. So I am presenting that as an information item. Are there any questions?
An observation that this tells us some things beyond just what you're trying to get across here. I look, for example, at engineering here. There's only 1 class listed, and that's statics, and there's still 15 in it. Usually, there's a whole bunch of engineering courses that you're trying to keep going. That tells me that wherever the college has done lately, the engineering programs work, and you have more students. It makes a better program. And I know someone will change the word. Thank you very much.
Very good. Thank you. Okay. So now we have our quarterly financial report. Is that the 4th quarter?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, good evening. We bring our financial reports to you quarterly. This is our 4th quarter. Believe it or not, it's still a projected or estimated. We prepare this in August to get it submitted to the state by September 15th and ready for this board meeting. But then we don't actually close till early September and submit that on October 10th. So this is really close to what you'll see as we do close. But this, usually we just bring you the 4th quarter each year. Wanted to point out a couple of highlights on the first page. If you can scroll down a little bit. If you look at total unrestricted revenue, this is an interesting report because your revenues and expenditures have really increased from the prior year. So our projected 15-16 was 60 million, 60.6 in revenues compared to 49.5 the year before. Some of those increases, just so you'll recall, 5 million was one-time and mandated costs. We ended up with 2.4 million in FTES growth. We had a really good year of growth last year. We had 500,000 in the COLA last year, which you might recall, and the 2.2 million in the base allocation. And then expenditures, I think, were proportional. If you go down to revenues over expenditures, this is about the most we've ever had fall that I've seen in recent years. It's 5.5 million. I wanted to explain some of that. 2.3 million went unspent in expenditures. 1.2 million of that we knew. You might recall we set aside money for we set almost 600,000 for our PERS and STIRS increases. We had our MAW, which we keep trying to get our departments to spend, but it's again 250,000 that went unspent. We had instructional equipment that was from that mandated cost pot. That's going to be spent this year. We also had some money go direct to the fund balance from that. And I think, okay, so that was the 1.2 million that we knew. And then there was about another million of just miscellaneous accounts, of which, for example, 180,000 was open positions in salaries for all classifications. So it's kind of a unique year. It was a strong year for us closing and fiscally. When you look down at the percentage of the fund balance, we were at 22.9%. After, well, jumping back up real quick, you might recall we adopted a $1.3 million surplus. So again, it's not that surprising that we had that much unspent. But the fund balance, 22.1 after we post some carryover. Some of this is going to be carried over. Going down to the bottom line, we have our FTES. At the time we prepared this, we were looking at 9358 to close the year. It actually came in a little over 9400, so there will be a little additional revenues that follow that. Going to the next page, you can look at the cash balance. We had 16.8 million in cash, which is great, but again, our fund balance was back in the 12 million range, so that just means that we had a little over 4 million in payables that we had accrued, cash that we had not written checks for yet. And then going on down, again, it just details the fund balance a little bit more, and it's line L1. Again, you see that $12 million fund balance, which we had a little over 400,000 in carryover. So it's actually a little less than that as we post carryover this year, but 22.16%. There were no employee contracts settled. I had thought about COSAFA, but that was actually third quarter, not fourth. And then we don't have any significant events for the quarter and no significant fiscal problems. So that's our fourth quarter.
It's good to have no's on those two questions.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's for your information. So any questions? Okay.
Good report. I know that Mr. Sherman would be happy to see that percentage of fund balance if he were here. Okay, that moves us to our consent calendar, I believe. All items listed on the consent calendar are considered routine and will be enacted by one motion. An item may be removed from the consent calendar at the request of any member of the Board of Trustees or any person in the audience and considered as a separate agenda item. Do we have any items on the consent calendar that need to be discussed or removed? If not, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar.
Move we approve consent calendar.
Second.
Motion and second. Any additional discussion? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, let's move to item 9, curriculum, new, modified, and deleted.
Good evening again. We have the curriculum report in front of you. This has been approved by the Curriculum Committee and the Academic Senate, and we're recommending that the board approve this as well. As you can see, we have several modifications. Most of these are up for minor updates, adding distance learning addendums, and 5-year review. That's on the first page. On page 2, again, these are all just minor updates, 5-year review, a few changes to units and prerequisites. On page 3, again, all courses, and these are minor modifications. The first 3 are just changes, 5-year review, and then starting with the bottom part of that are deletions. There's some work experience courses, network administration that are no longer being offered, And on the last page, 2 more course deletions that are in our IT program that are no longer being offered. So the recommendation is that the board approve these changes.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the curriculum, new, modified, or deleted. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Item 10, Ms. Staton, on the annual resolution regarding the appropriation limit.
Okay, you do receive this every year, the annual appropriation limit, also known as the GAN limit. And our appropriation for 16-17 is $102.9 million, which well exceeds what the state actually does appropriate to us of $49.5 million. So we meet all the calculation requirements, and we request that you approve the resolution.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for the adoption of Resolution 2016-13. Would you please poll the board?
Trustee Zumwalt?
Aye.
Trustee Cardoza?
Aye.
Trustee Mann?
Aye.
Trustee Nunez?
Aye. Resolution 2016-13 is unanimously approved. And that moves us to item 11, the finalization of the 16-17 budget.
It's probably not a good thing if I grab my water when I come up here for that, huh? Megan, do you have, can I use the pointer? You got it, you got it. Okay. So tonight, we have our 16-17 budget for final adoption by the board approval. We also have, you have received our budget book, and for those here tonight, this really is an informative book. It gets into a lot more detail than the PowerPoint or the actual budget that goes to the state. But we're in a good year this year, again, and we're really happy that we have settled a lot of our negotiations. So for 16-17, we're presenting it tonight. Before I jump into the PowerPoint, I'm just going to say the top page of your board agenda item actually compared where we were with tentative to where we are with final. I think I'm going to speak through all those changes in here, but if you have any specific questions at the end, let me know. It highlighted a few things, but. So we are budgeting 0 FTS growth. We actually did budget at 9,400, which is about where we thought we were ending last year. We ended up ending just a touch higher. But the state is allowing for 2% access. With that new growth formula, we could grow by 3.2%. So 2% statewide equals 3.2% for us. We could grow by 333 and actually realize those revenues, but we don't like to budget them until we're assured of that growth, which is why we budgeted a lot at the end of last year. We call it the UNCOLA. As you know, there's still 0 COLA, no new COLA showed up. The increased base funding is still a little less than $600,000. The state intended to primarily help with PERS and STRS increases. And we have budgeted a 0 health and welfare cap increase because, as you know, we changed to SISC and costs are actually a little lower, so it wasn't necessary, and most savings are being realized by the employees with their out-of-pocket expenses. Some other items that are in here, Prop 39 energy efficiency, $350,000, which is a little more than the state usually gives us each year. This was one thing I wanted to note to you. When we brought tentative, we had a placeholder, a reduction in state revenue of $1 million at that time, so tentative in June. Since then, especially the July budget workshop that we go to, they said, we were trying to say, why is no one concerned that this 0.25% sales tax is expiring in December? There's not even a ballot measure to extend that. There is for the income tax on the wealthy. But no one was saying anything about the revenues we might lose. The speakers and the state representatives finally said, the state's in a really good place. You do not even need to worry about cuts because of the 0.25% sales tax. So we took that off.
That's amazing.
That enabled us to really wrap up some of our negotiations in a much better place. So that's the biggest change from last time. Let's see, student success and student equity. No increased funding, nothing really big as far as changes there. Scheduled maintenance and instructional equipment. This is a little more than we usually get. but it's also less than we had hoped. You might have remembered us saying, wow, they proposed 2 million in this pot. We found out later that was primarily a placeholder. We're still happy to get over 1.5 million, but you might recall last year we were hoping to give $1 million for instructional equipment to our faculty and to run through perhaps instructional council and some of those needs. We're going to try and get it up to 800,000. We're working through that with the budget committee, but the allocation came in at 757. A strong workforce program, as our president mentioned, 200 million statewide. There is a lot involved with the collaboration in the regional areas, but our allocation formula allows for $1 million to our district, so you will see that in the budget, an extra $1 million in restricted funding. In addition, at the regional level, it looks like we're going to be getting maybe a little over another $1 million. There's 7.5, I think, million at the regional level, and about 6 or 7 districts that are sharing that. So, but we won't budget that until we hear more and actually are allocated those funds. STRS and PERS, these, just to say, we're good for 16-17 because we had budgeted those in advance in 15-16, a total of 670-some thousand. For 17-18, this is something that's kind of important. We have budgeted a placeholder already for 17-18. So we have 620,000 in a sense in one-time funds here in this fiscal year so that we will be ready for 17-18 costs. Mandated costs. We are going to receive another $865,000. Wanted you to know it's not in this budget yet because we usually never budget that until it's received. But this fall we hope to bring some ideas and requests to the board. We're going to take some of this to our budget committee first, move it on up to District Government Senate, and then bring some proposals to you as a board. So that's a benefit for us. Also regarding one-time additional funds, Hanford did reach 1,000 FTEs a year early. So when that is acknowledged by the state, we anticipate to receive an extra 1.2 million in additional funds. For 16-17, we don't know when we'll receive that. It could be as late as the recalculation they do in February 2018. So when we receive it, we will budget it. That is one-time dollars for this year. It is an ongoing allocation, but next year, 17-18, it's a remove and replace because next year we fall out of the mid-sized college category, so we're losing 1.2 million, and this will cover it. You may have heard 1.1 million in the past. This is just with increases in funding, especially the base, it's gone up. So, and we're kind of, it looks like we're going to be at 9,500 pretty soon. So whether we reach 10,000 soon, it's something we could look forward to. We're just not jumping through hoops to push ourselves to that next year. This is our PERS and STRS increases that we've been dealing with. We've made it halfway through. We've already budgeted for 17-18. When I say halfway through, there were prior years. But this total $3 million increased expense, we just keep chipping away at. So that we have three more years beyond what we have budgeted for. Our general fund unrestricted and total. So this column is unrestricted. This is our total budget. It shows a $637,000 surplus, meaning our revenues exceed our expenses by that amount. And we always budget restricted equal. Revenues equal expenditures, so it's not going to change your surplus at all. What I wanted to say about that surplus is you might have heard me mention we have 400,000 in carryover we're going to post. When we post that, we don't have any revenue to go with it. We're going to budget these additional expenditures, allow those departments to spend fund balance. So that surplus will go down by about 400,000. And then we'll have the rest, which we have mentioned for our last remaining unit that we're negotiating with currently. And so that's where we are at this point in time. Fund balance, just to mention, we anticipate starting this year at 12.2, maybe ending up closer to 12 to 13 million. We still have a board priority of 15%, but the board priority actually mentions statewide average. Statewide average has continued to climb up, so I contacted the state to find out. It is projected to be 22% at this time next year. Right now at fourth quarter, they're saying 19% is what what is showing from those fourth quarter reports. Everyone hasn't closed their books yet, but that's what was showing at that point. And just to reiterate, just monthly payroll and benefits alone cost us $4.25 million on average. So it's pretty good to have an emergency reserve there that's fairly healthy. I'm not going to go through these in a detailed manner, but as we're going through our process, it's important to link all our decisions for resource allocations to our district goals and objectives. And we just discuss everything and say how it's linked. For instance, the 12 faculty, the counselors, full-time temporary. What is that helping our district to achieve? And we have goal 1, 2, 3 in the mission that those touch. We have new academic lab assistants. It touches goal 2 and 3. We have a new microcomputer specialist. This was actually the only full-time classified that we did add, but that's going to help us especially with goal 4. We have a 0.5 in copy and mail. We have a new custodial supervisor. It actually replaced a custodial lead, so there wasn't much of a cost, but we think that it's really going to help us with achieving goal 4 and improving our effectiveness and efficiency. We have another 0.5 custodian coming on. We have the above base resource allocation. Normally we have $100,000 in general fund unrestricted. We bumped that to $150 this year. We have, let's see what's next, CourseLeaf annual contract. CourseLeaf is replacing Curricunet, and it's a new and better program to follow our curriculum with. So we have an ongoing cost of almost $30,000 and a one-time cost of $73,000, which you may see another small one-time come your way in the next couple months. Keep going. Summer school budget, we just continue to increase our summer school attendance and our offerings, which is wonderful. Library hours to 6 p.m. Keep going. Law school bar initiative. These are just some things that worked their way through our senior management last year and received approval for additional funding. Human resources, a lot of their advertising and fingerprinting, TB testing, fiscal services, audit fees, facilities, grounds and custodial supplies, including transportation. And then we had our another description of our staffing. Annual ongoing increases. Now, we always show you fiscal solvency projections. This is how we do it. We wanted to say what might our increases be for 17-18 and what might they be for 18-19, and wanted you folks to see how we came up with increases in expenditures. A note is the utilities, the insurance, and the fawn are kind of placeholders because we don't really know how those are going to come out. But usually the fawn's going to be related, whatever we increase staff will be related proportionally somewhat to how many retirees we have. Also, we are including 1.5% COLA and 2% COLA projections for those years respectively. That might be a little optimistic, but we're also including zero growth. And as we've seen, we're having a trend to growth. It's not optimistic in the sense that school services, a statewide agency, that's what they're saying we should see in those 2 years. So you take all those numbers, you plug them in. This is where we are 16-17, 17-18, we would basically be at break even. And 18-19, we have a little deficit, and I'm not too concerned about that at this point because it's close to break even, especially when you see funds go unspent at the end of the year. So that's our projection. This is our FTS. We finished last year, we believe we're at 94.29. I say believe because we're doing a recal here by October 1st. The state, we're not sure where they're going to end up funding us, but they're right about at 9,400, which is why we adopted 9,400. They'll fund us up to 97.33. So we have our categoricals. Biggest changes were the strong workforce, and let's see, there was something that got about 500,000 basic skills transformation up there. 2 new programs. I won't go through these in detail, but these are all our farm units, the revenues that we expect, and the expenses that are also related to those farm units. Total ag instruction is different than our total farming units, but these are our instructional units. Expenditures do exceed revenues, and we use some restricted lottery, but the farm helps to chip in to cover some of those differences. And then these are the farm budgets themselves and what we expect to be seeing. Expense is a little less than revenue overall there. And then we also have an operational loan for the almonds. These are our other budgets for our other debt services, farm special reserve. These are just our revenues and expenses. You folks might, I actually love, sorry, I love these things, but in here, about in the middle, there is a page with all the fund balances. So if you wanted to see, I could see which page it is. I had it marked, but once you know, there it is. Page 18. For instance, capital projects has 4.4 million in it right now because of those funds we put in last year from the one-time mandated costs. Linwood Reserve is back up to 2.2 because we were able to replenish that million that we used to meet the corporate obligation, and we were able to replenish that from our bond issuance. So things like that, those are helpful sometimes to know those. And I think that's about it, and it's here for your approval, but are there any questions or comments? Yeah.
As I recall, medium-sized college is defined as 10,000, I assume it's still the same. When we get to 10,000 again, do you deduct Hanford and Tulare from the total, or is it all three?
No, if we were to reach it again, then we get an extra 1.2 million.
All three added together, 10,000?
Yes, yeah, sorry.
Okay.
Yeah. And in fact, when you see 9,400 or 9,429, that's all three added together.
I mean, that's doable if we continue on.
It is.
Just at a normal.
On the
We
continuum
could,
on.
yeah, we could, if we use our natural, sustainable pace of growth, hit a mid-sized college range and have funding for 2 centers. What we've done in the meantime is stabilized ourselves, so that we're not trying to artificially inflate and then spend 3 years coming down. So now we can just grow, that's why we set
And
our
look for that
1.75. If we could just grow a little bit at a time,
Get there in a couple of years.
we'll hit the mid-sized college and pick up another million on top of what we got for both centers.
Yeah, their stability is huge.
I wanted to say real quickly, I forgot to thank Linda McCauley, Leangela Miller Hernandez, and Karen Pauls. Like, I get to talk about all this, but I don't put it all together. And these ladies really worked very hard to get our budget in place.
Christine, just for clarification, on the page where we have our assumed COLAs, where we're doing our multi-year projection, you
Yeah.
might have said this, and I apologize if I wasn't listening, but did we pull those off of some sort of a dartboard?
Yeah,
Okay.
school services
It is?
dartboard.
Okay, okay.
Actually, they have 1.6% for 17-18. I just used 1.5, and then they have 2% for 18-19. So that's where the pros are, projecting the state will be with a COLA.
So we're nearly break even on our multi-year across all three, and we haven't projected any FTES growth in this?
Correct,
Okay,
correct.
good.
Which is why I think we're
We're in great,
okay.
yeah, we're in good shape.
Okay, I think Mr. Zumwalt remembers years ago when you were asking for some of those projections, because at that time, it didn't look like we could go out 5 years and sustain what we were doing.
Sure as hell
So-
helps a person sleep at night.
I'll agree with that.
Okay, well, listen, again, I appreciate all the hard work and cranking out the numbers. I know how tedious that can be, and especially if you get the right numbers in there, so appreciate it very much. Any other comments, questions, or discussion?
I like how the budget looks the same year to year, with a few extras, but in general, it looks the same, so we can actually understand it from year to year, so thank you for that. Consistency and keeping it the same helps a lot. so
And it
appreciate
is for your approval.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for the adoption of the 2016-17 district budget. Any additional questions or discussion? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you very much, and thank you all for staying with us. And it's Monday night football time, I think.
24-9 in the second quarter.
Okay, so meeting is adjourned.